anniversary, and there was talk of a greatest hits record, which I probably still owe them at some point if they remember that I was ever on their label, and so on and so on. So that may or may not happen. As far as Pretty Hate Machine, I don't even know who owns that right now. The story of that record is so convoluted and sickening. Cliff Notes version is TVT Records owned that album. That's the way record contracts worked back then. They lend you a little bit of money to make a record. You pay it back, then they own it. TVT managed to fuck themselves up and go bankrupt, So the last I heard was a bank owned TVT. And we tried to buy it off the bank, and the bank wanted to package it with all the other garbage that TVT had in their assets that they couldn't pay back, and all the rest of it was bullshit. And do you want to spend several $1 million to buy back a record that you made? And then it raises the question, well, what does it mean if I own it or not? What the fuck difference is, So that's all I can even remember of what happened. It was something to do with the bank has it, and it's a hassle, and I don't even think it's in print right now. So that doesn't seem like Pretty Hate Machine is going to be shaking free anytime less. Maybe it will, maybe it wouldn't. I mean, if I had access to that, I would go back in and certainly remaster it. I might remix it. And that might open a can of worms that just ruins whatever it was. That record sounds dated to me by my ears now, but it was a long time ago, and I was a different person back then, and that's what it is. So I don't know. I don't think about that one that much. That one I had to kind of distance myself from it. It's not that I don't love the record, and it's not that it wasn't part of me. It's just that it's like finding out that something you made and believed in belongs to someone else, and you can't get it back. And it really calls to attention how much the record business sucks. So.
Right. Have you? It just reminded me of a question. Have you listened to any of? One person remastered Pretty Hate Machine, did their own, tweaking on it, made it sound a lot, not more live, I guess, made it sound sharper, louder than it has. Have you ever downloaded any the remasters, or some person did their own surround sound version of The Fragile that they've been on a couple of tourist sites like Pirate Bay?
I've heard of The Fragile one. I've not listened to it, and I had not heard of Pretty Hate Machine. Send me a link or something, I'll check it out. But what they would be doing is going back, though, to the already mastered version and then just kind of sweetening it up a bit. So
yeah.
I'm sure it probably sounds better, but that's not how I would go about doing it.
Right. Okay. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, number 7. This kind of has to do with some red tape, I believe. From Interscope and recording stuff. There is a large demand for live recordings of Nine Inch Nails shows. Have you ever considered a monetized, perhaps by no nations, Nine Inch Nails specific live recording touring site? And if so, are there any particular legal issues that would prevent you from releasing live recordings? And what about providing soundboard or pro video footage from the past, such as from the surprise OSR gig?
For the surprise, what gig did you say?
Open Source Resistance gig.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
We've had a bunch of talks of different companies we could go through to try to monetize live recordings. And none of them really felt like they made sense to me. I haven't spent a lot of time researching it, but there's a couple issues that get raised. One is, I don't know that I would want every show we've done recorded necessarily, certainly put out formally, because we're not always that good live, to be honest with you. And there's times when I'm not censoring myself, so some of this might sound stupid, it might be stupid, but there's certain gigs where the energy is just one of kind of chaos, and that is what makes the show good. And there's something about knowing that you're recording that you sometimes restrain yourself because you want to maybe be more technically perfect rather than emotionally in the moment. And that's just how my brain works. If I know we're filming something, it's never the best show because everyone's trying to play precise, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you don't give a fuck, you have a good show because you're having a good show and you're actually enjoying it. So the idea that somebody would think they're going to pay money and every night they're going to get a recording, you know, there's a couple things. One is what I just said, and the second thing is all music's free anyway. You know, and the idea that you're going to coerce somebody into paying for something, to me that just incentivizes people to steal it, you know, and that's just the way it is. You know, Live Nation came up with some idiotic idea that, hey, when you buy your ticket, we're going to give that Ninja EP away with the purchase of a ticket. And it's like, no, you're not. That's a stupid fucking idea that nobody's going to buy a ticket for $100 to get a 5-song EP. You know, it's just going to, the first second that's out, everyone's going to get it. I wouldn't do that, you know? That's like you know, scratch the cap off the Pepsi lid and then enter it in on a website and then get a code, and nobody fucking does that. And then to get a free song, it sucks, you know? So a lot of that kind of feels like you're just selling air to people that they already can breathe, you know? And so what I've tried to do to answer to that is this open recording policy on this tour. And that's mainly because we're not planning on recording this. You know, we're not planning on making a DVD of this tour. And there's a number of reasons why, mainly because I think we've done it enough. And I think it's more interesting to have the community generate it themselves. You know, I don't know what's going to happen on this, but, you know, the Bridge School benefit, to go back to that, what was kind of interesting to me on that was the week after that happened, you know, a couple videos showed up on YouTube. And then 2 weeks after it, another one popped up. And then pretty soon there was a handful, as I remember, there was a handful of things that kind of forensically people started piecing together. You had a sense of what the whole show was, you know, that was just from whoever happened to be at that concert. So we're kind of trying to encourage, since some people are going to film it or try to film it or take pictures anyway, hey, just do whatever you want. Hopefully it will be centrally, wind up in some central location like Vimeo or YouTube. I'm sure it will. Probably. And you can kind of experience, you know, search around, and hopefully nin.com's tags and metadata will help find those things. But that's how I think this should be archived this time. You know, I don't feel good about trying to charge people for a live recording or a live video. Plus it puts the pressure on us every night to have a decent mix that comes out if we're going to officially stamp it. And this way, it's, you know, do what you want. And if something cool comes out, great. If something sucks, you know, it feels less like it's my responsibility. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just the thought process behind why we're doing it.
I can see during this tour and after this tour is over, just from what I feel from what we saw with the Lights in the Sky HD footage that was released, I could just see a lot more multi-edit cam footage and concerts of material released, and people taking different cams of the same song, editing up like they did with Lights in the Sky, but from their fans' perspective.
Well, we may, I mean, to be honest with you, I really haven't thought the whole thing through, but, I mean, there's no reason that we couldn't do what we did on the last tour, which we own those cameras. You know, we bought them for the Lights in the Sky, film a few things like that, make them available, put some board mixes up. You know, I'm not precious about it. I just I don't feel like I should be charging people, you know, you paid 50, 60, 80, 100, whatever, to come see the show. Now we're going to hustle you for more money for a shitty recording of it. You know, just,
right.
If you're interested, I think, you know, I like the idea of the Hive community putting together stuff. And if we can provide them with enough tools, whether they generate them themselves through permission to bring in cameras and stuff, or we embellish that with stuff we film. You know, we probably will do that now that I've thought about it for the first time. So, what we're not trying to do, though, is have some elaborate formal shoot to make a, you know, pay for DVD type thing.
Right. No more besides doing time type stuff.
Not for this. You know, it doesn't feel right. It feels like we're getting into the milking it territory. That's my take on it. So.
Gotcha. Alright, number 8. If you were to make a short list of people anywhere in the world with whom you would collaborate